So, thanks for joining us. We have a brand new guest, of course, celebrating 1 year anniversary. So, of course, bringing together many different community leaders, bringing together many different business owners, activists, advocates, and we look forward to this continuing in year two. But of course, I have a very special guest. Does a lot of work in the advocacy space around drug policy. Is a queen of green, plant mother. We all know her in this area. So thanks for joining us, and hopefully you can hear me this time.
Yes, yes. Hi,
Yeah.
thank you for having me.
Yes, and so you have to pronounce your name for the people out there. Your first and your last name, because I didn't even try to get the pronunciation of your last name.
My name is Querida Escalera, known as Queen of Green DC, and the founder of the Psychedelics Guild.
Yes. So I think I met you initially like at a grow facility. That's where I initially met you, and you were, or you probably still are, post harvest. You were dealing with, well, from my understanding, post harvest is mostly like the packaging and getting ready to go out, right? Like that's
Yeah, part of it, yeah. And then the
okay.
other
Okay.
part is like,
We'll dig into the process. So
okay.
what exactly does the post harvest production process like? What does that look like in the grow?
Okay, so after a plant gets cut down, then it gets hung up and dried for a predetermined amount of time. After we dry the flower, bucket into totes where we are able to get it tested. Once we get it tested, we get it trimmed up and packaged up and ready to go. So
For
we
sure. I
take a
mean,
good product and make it better.
but that is true, and there's a lot of care that needs to go into that post harvest because that's where the curing process happens, right? So
Yes,
you can have a great plant that isn't cured well, and then doesn't turn out to be a great plant, right? So
right.
you're in a very important part of the process, I would say, and
Yeah,
and and just for people who for their edification who don't have knowledge, what is the brand or the business that you work with?
I work for Holistic Industries.
Okay, yes, Holistic Industries. I remember they're one of the only ones in Prince George's County. That's still the case, I believe. They're one of the
Yes.
only cultivators in Prince George's County. We got a near one in Jessup, and I think um, I'm trying to think what's the next closest one. Next closest one might be Hagerstown.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like they're very spread out. We're like the only one that's really centrally located.
they're very spread out. There's not many in Central Maryland, but
Right.
what I've seen is a lot of them are in Eastern and Western Maryland.
Yes.
Um, during my, I guess, during my tours and becoming a somewhat expert, right? The thing is like there is way more flower consumption, in like I guess it's like Southern and Central Maryland, as opposed to like Eastern and Western Maryland, where they're using more concentrates and like live rosin. Um, and so it was perplexing to me that they didn't have these infrastructure set up and the industry set up in Central Maryland. So that was very shocking to me. But then I learned from kind of an owner, it's cheaper, right? So it's cheaper
Yes.
down there to operate because the cost of the land, the cost
Hmm.
of electricity, the cost of the water, and then also the workers, right? So the
Yep.
workers were willing to be quite honest, willing to work for less, right?
Yeah.
In some of these areas, and so how have you guys succeeded? And because you guys are one of if not my favorite, you guys are my number two grow. So you guys are definitely up there. And I would say I've went to I think 7 out of the 12 or 13 uh, in the Maryland area, the Maryland medical market. So I'm making my way down, but I'm pretty sure you guys are going to stay in the top 3 no matter what.
That's awesome to hear. Um, so what was your question again? I'm sorry. I just totally drew a
Um,
blank.
so my question really was about like since a lot of these other places they have lower production costs. Well, not necessarily lower production costs, but lower real estate costs. They have maybe lower overhead because they're paying their people less. So you guys being centrally located, how have you guys, continue to thrive, right? Like, in a different environment than necessarily a lot of the other cultivators.
So one thing is, people are just very excited to be a part of this industry, very excited to learn about it. So, it's been a little bit of a struggle. The company is trying to, of course, pay people a lot better because they're very aware that, the area that we're in is quite expensive. I
Sure.
do know that, we try to pay our employees as best as possible, but then also offer them kind of a decent workplace. That's really big. People don't really realize how,
Work culture, the culture.
yes, the work culture, exactly. So within the facility, we have a great work culture. Um, and so that's what we kind of, just try to build and grow upon, and then of course make the changes as a company to kind of better compensate people and things like that.
For sure, for sure. I mean, a lot of people, think that, people get paid gazillions and zillions of dollars, but it's a really rough, industry, very, very turbulent, a lot of changes. Um, I'm glad to see that you're still there. When I was there, I saw a lot of diversity in the building, a lot of representation. So of course, when I say that you're still there, that you are, of color, Black, and you are in leadership. So yeah, definitely big ups to you there.
Thank you.
And so the next thing I was going to say is, I see, just focusing on many talents, many interests that you have. You're the founder of the Psychedelics Guild, so you have to educate us on what that is. And I follow you guys, but for the people watching out there, they got to know, we talk about psychedelics sometimes. And I just recently saw, it was a study about like teenagers and kids battling depression, and how psychedelics are being explored. So but yeah, so tell us about the Psychedelics Guild.
So the Psychedelics Guild is my brain baby. It's my nonprofit. Pretty much what we believe in is it shouldn't be a crime to free your mind. And pretty much we just want to educate the public on making good decisions as far as drugs and drug use go. And we also are pushing for the decriminalization of all drugs. Now, granted, it's called the Psychedelics Guild. That's just what I have the most experience with is psychedelics. But really, we're pushing for, just like I said, the decriminalization of all drugs, just so that we can kind of move in a better direction as far as the way we treat drug users, and just kind of support them in a better way, because criminalization isn't the way. Firm believer in that. So it's people say, harm reduction. It's pretty much what we are kind of, trying to put forth, just harm reduction. You try and teach people, better methods, better ways of doing things, because at the end of the day, just because the law says no doesn't mean that the people are going to not do it. So people are going to do it regardless. And, just because they're going against the grain doesn't mean that they don't deserve support. And so we just want to kind of help change the laws with other organizations, so that people can receive the support without, demonization and ruining their lives in a sense.
Yeah, I agree with that. The thought is, as you mentioned, criminalization is a tool that we've used for a long time, on, quote unquote, the war on drugs, right? And
Yeah.
still to some design using it, right? Like, in states where we have legalization happening, there's still a lot of drug arrests happening, right?
Right.
So it's not as if, like, the legalization means like no one is, going to be found criminally liable or anything like that. And not just the cannabis that you bought in. I know earlier we mentioned, the psychedelics. So psilocybin has been a big conversation but you went a step further to say, all, right? So I think that there was a place in British Canada recently that had passed legislation to basically legalize cocaine, methamphetamine, and I forgot what the other one was, but there were definitely more serious ones. But I've been a big proponent of, like, I've seen what some of the other European countries have done, creating safe spaces, safe access, and the thought is you've seen the drug use decrease, right? And you've seen the cases where people are sharing needles, those cases decrease.
Right.
Not that, of course, you're encouraging them to do it, but you're not criminalizing them, when it does happen. And if it in fact, is a problem, which it can be, you're
Right.
treating it as a substance abuse, right? You can use too
Right.
much of anything, you know,
Right.
you can have too much coffee, too much water, things are,
Exactly.
you know, so yes, but
Exactly.
that we're a long ways away from that in Maryland or the
Yeah.
DMV. I think your better push is to try to legalize psilocybin, at least since we have the cannabis legalization.
Yeah, I definitely agree that that would be the easier route for sure, but just kind of so the reason why I like to look at all instead of just some, there's this term that they throw around. It's called psychedelic exceptionalism. So while yes, the effects of other drugs are worse and than psilocybin and LSD and things like that that in my opinion and in a opinion of a lot of other folks, is that what that kind of does is add legitimacy to the war on drugs. And in all honesty, like I don't support the scheduled system. I don't support the war on drugs, because at the end of the day it was just used to criminalize black and brown communities. Like that's what they used it for, and other communities, you know what I'm saying, the LGBTQ community. And when you add, when you're like, oh well, these drugs are better than these drugs, you're adding legitimacy to that system and to that war. And it's like, no, like drugs are drugs. Okay, drugs can't be bad, drugs can't be good. They can make us act in a certain way that may not be favorable, but drugs cannot be bad nor good. Drugs are just drugs. They just exist. They're substances. And I just kind of want to change the conversations that we have around those substances, because um, there's a lot of misinformation. And what does misinformation do? It causes crazy laws like, no, you can't have more than 10 grams of weed on you if you don't have a med card. Like we kind of need to step away from othering drugs, in my opinion, just because it doesn't help in the grand scheme of things. I do support, just psilocybin and things like that becoming decriminalized and all of that. But when you leave the other drugs out of the conversation, well, you're leaving a lot of people out of the conversation. And so, harm reduction is where you're trying to go. You can't leave anybody out. So that's kind of just how I feel about it.
And I understand where you're coming from. Some great points, othering drugs, and you explained to me the psychedelic exceptionalism. When we're looking at drug usage, right, and we're treating all drugs equal. Um, let's say that someone has a heroin problem. Um, one of the substances that are typically known as a harder drug, right? They're labeled a harder drug. So let's just say that they had those proclivities to use those drugs, right? They were inclined, they had the habit. Um, would you advocate for alternatives like hemp, cannabis, LSD, psilocybin? Is that because I know that what I've seen opioid users decrease their opioid use with medical cannabis, but I've also seen a lot of experimenting around depression, um, and depression and LSD, psilocybin, and so like some of these harder opioid, heroin, addicted folks, would you suggest or recommend these I would say, I guess, less less long term, because that's what I would think. Like a lot of these ones I can think about are very short term, but like the ones that have long term overarching effects are probably some of the ones that I mentioned earlier.
Yes, if a person is at the point in their life where they are looking to um, pretty much stop using whatever substance and pretty much replace it with another that we deem safer, absolutely. But really, we're here to offer the education. Um, you can't say that you're part of harm reduction if you mainly push for people to, just stop using drugs, because that's, I mean, yes, in a perfect world, we want people to stop using drugs, stop doing things that harm them.
Sure.
But we don't live in a perfect world. We don't know what kind of led people down the road that they're on that made them use those other substances. So until we kind of, you know, in my opinion, tackle those pieces of the struggles that people have that led them to the drug use that they're doing, I mean, I can offer the information, which we do. We offer the information of, there are definitely better ways to cope. But until we kind of fix those issues that person, experienced, that brought them to where they want to use heroin and stuff like that, we're really just putting a band-aid on their issue. Because I mean, who's to say that, once they do, start using cannabis again, and then something sets them in a spiral because their living conditions still haven't changed. There it's like I said, in a perfect world, yes, I want people to use things that are, more so plant medicines and definitely better for them. But we don't live in a perfect world. And these are human beings that we're dealing with. And from what I've come to see is that a lot of people who use these drugs have a lot of problems and issues that they just haven't been able to deal with because they don't have the tools to. So we can offer them, cannabis and, psilocybin and things like that. But until we kind of change change not the world that they're in, but, change the state that they're in, does it really help? Like,
Hmm.
it doesn't make their problems go away.
And that's a good point. It reminds me of something that a kind of family of mine said. Lawan, you probably have heard of Lawan Stribling.
That's my sis.
Yes, okay, for sure. What she commonly says, we have to understand why we consume, and that was kind of to the point of what you were saying at the end of getting to the root cause. So I think that that's big, and I'm glad Lawan. Definitely great that dynamic Black women know each other. And so, would you consider yourself an herbalist?
No, I wouldn't consider myself a herbalist. I would consider myself a herbal friendly consumer. But I wouldn't consider myself an herbalist. I know certain herbs. I know, you know, not to be like I know drugs, but I know, drugs. I know drugs that are derived from plants and things like that.
Lots
But
of drugs.
I would, yeah, a lot,
Yeah,
but I wouldn't say that I am a herbalist. That's definitely not something that I've dove into yet.
for sure, for sure. And I'm sure it's in your future. So I see that you have experience growing. What are some of your favorite things to grow outside of cannabis?
Mushrooms, they're actually my number one favorite thing to grow. It is like probably my number one hobby is growing mushrooms. And then, I do a little dabbling in the garden of like, peppers and tomatoes and stuff like that.
Oh,
But really, really mushrooms.
huh. I got to hit you up for some caps. Wow. Okay. Well, great to hear that. For most times I advocate, to learn how to plant, learn how to grow, and of course not just speaking cannabis, but your food, right? Like,
Yeah.
we should all learn how to sustain ourselves. Um, big pushing for community gardens, and you know
Yes.
imagine if, like, a generation of Black kids learn how to cultivate, as opposed to working in retail, or having dreams of becoming a basketball player. Not to say that
Right.
you shouldn't have dreams, but it's just an overarching amount of people who want to attain these things.
Right.
And essentially, that was the idea that I brought up to one of the mayors. She didn't understand legalization, thought it wasn't great. So I said, one, you could change some of the perceptions around, the charges of your nephew, your niece. You can help them expungement. They can get out. I said, but I said that the bigger point is imagine those kids, 16, 17, 18-year old, who don't know what they want to do, but I'm sure that they can be involved in some way in this space and find it meaningful and exciting. Not to say
Yes.
that you're encouraging them to use, but at the end of the day, this could be a profession that they're making money, and that they truly enjoy doing it. Because a lot of times when I'm talking to my people, they don't even know where to start or how to get involved in the industry,
Right.
right? So,
Yeah, no, agriculture is a huge part of cannabis, period. And, I do fully support, especially kids, kind of learning agriculture, especially in cities, because while kids don't have the space, yeah, they have the community gardens. Kids also should learn, indoor gardening, because that is a thing. You can grow things indoors. You can grow things in tight places, and I do feel like that benefits communities when children and their parents, whoever, when people who live in these inner city areas learn about growing plants just in general, and if something as simple as cannabis can kind of lead them down that path, that's amazing. I've
agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. And so, one of the things that I saw when I went to, I think it was the St. Mary's College, they have a program down there that works with, um, I want to say it's either the juvenile detention center or it's like the adult facility. And then basically, they participate in this program to help, to help them, for one, uh, plant nurturing is therapy, or plant nurturing is therapy, right? So a lot of these individuals, men, young men, they find peace, dealing with the plants. And like Amani, you said, not cannabis plants, it's like hemp or regular food or something like that. So Amani, not cannabis, but they find solace. Like you can't be angry while planting, right? Like it's almost
Right.
not possible being in nature. But so the thought is they have this program where they're learning how to basically support the economy in that area. That economy, there's a lot of food production that comes. There's a lot of hay, and so like them working helps not only them get the skills to be in the agricultural industry once they get out, but it's also like therapeutic for them. And so
Right.
it was definitely and I want to say it was teenagers. So I want to say it was like troubled teenagers, and that's who was in the group. It was like at risk youth.
So, like, two things that people can learn from growing plants, and that's one, ownership, and the second thing is acceptance. So the first part, ownership, when you have a plant that you care for, and you have to water it every day, you have to feed it, you have to do the things that will help it thrive and help it grow. So that's
Yeah.
how kind of plants helps with learning how to grow, helps with ownership. And it also helps, like, you learn acceptance, because while, yeah, you may do everything quote unquote right and by the book, it still may not end up how you think it's going to end up. But you learn that when you grow. You learn to, okay, I did what I could, and I accept this. I accept the result. So that's how I kind of look at growing. It definitely helps people learn some valuable kind of moral lessons, along with it being just a satisfying activity to kind of take part in.
Yeah, I saw that you not only enrich yourself, but you're out there sharing the information with the people. You had a very informative video about planting. I hope to see many more of those. And I think that we do have legalization, right? So we need to be pushing and educating people on home growth. The same that a lot of other states did. Giving out seeds and
Yeah.
you know so I'm sure you're going to have a lot of consulting opportunities or cameo opportunities. um, the question that I wanted to ask was, there's a lot of brands that are under holistics. Is there one that's your favorite? And I might get you in trouble there,
One
but
When that's my favorite. So I love our OG strain, OG brand. Like, Garcia's cool, Camino's cool, but because I've worked for this company so long, I have a special place in my heart for, the OG brand, where we had our strains like this is maybe a old one for some people who are like, what the heck is that? But like Montana Silvertip, and we had like our Gorilla Glue number 4. Like, GG number 4, excuse me, can't say Gorilla Glue number 4, GG number 4, like all just pretty
Yeah.
much our OG brand. Like
So
I
you gotta
think that.
explain that, because everyone is in a. I understand about the infringement and all that, but like you have to explain the GG4 aspect. So just give them the Reader's Digest version of why you say GG4 now.
Oh, because Gorilla Glue was like, nah, you're not about to you're not about to use our name, our brand, to try to sell your weed. And so they were just like, no, nobody uses Gorilla Glue. Everybody says GG, or well, we say GG4. I'm not sure what other businesses do, but we consider,
Understood. And yeah, the Gorilla they came at you guys. And so these OG brands, these were under like these were under you guys, like grown. These weren't white labeled or anything, or another company, right? Like
no, Strain, like pretty much Strain is that's our brand. And then yeah.
Understood. See, I know I forgot that. So Strain is pretty much like synonymous with holistic.
Yes.
Okay,
Strain
I understand. Strain is one of the better ones. I did get a Run Your Face Off a few times. Rambushan, which are very terpy
Yes.
flowers. So I appreciate those too, and relatively good price points. I will say that my favorite one doesn't always have a great price point, but I think they came down a little bit since they initially, which was the Garcia handpicked.
Yeah.
The Burmese Mimosa, I believe, was my relative favorite there. After that, it would have to be the Florida Kush, but I would say that Garcia has the best packaging that I've seen. Not only do they have the cool designs, but we know that if you keep your gas in glass, it's fresher. So theirs comes in glass. I believe it comes with a Boveda pack as well.
No, we don't put Bovedas.
But anyway, so it's so fresh, and they're trying to give you like whole buds, not small buds.
Right.
So there's been times where you're just getting a whole 3-5 nug. It's not even, you know. So yes, I guess we got to thank the packagers, right? We got to thank the packagers
Yes.
for that, but we also we also have to thank Garcia for making sure that they're growing those big buds as well. But we have to thank the packager because they could push a lot of small buds out there if they wanted to.
Yeah, no, I have to definitely give props to our grower who was a female. Unfortunately, she left the company, but our female grower, Michaela Parks, she is a phenomenal grower. And she definitely did her thing when it came to improving just the quality that we put out. Those big buds, all her and her team, and they continue to do an amazing job when it comes to taking care of those plants, for sure.
For sure. I mean, it's been some time, not quite a year since I've been there, but I hope to check you guys out in 23. I'm sure there's a bunch of new crops coming up for the spring and summer. Okay, and so one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, it's a rapid question, so it's a few in succession. But the first one is like, what is your favorite strain and why?
My favorite strain, Skywalker OG. It just is such a pungent indica, and it's a very relaxing strain. So that's my number one.
That's for sure. I'm familiar with that one. Classic. Favorite superhero and why?
Favorite superhero is, while he is, the epitome of, privilege. I love me some Batman. I love me some Batman.
Yeah, I saw a comment about Batman fighting aliens and all this morning, but yeah, Batman classic. I think they had a new movie coming out or recently, so I don't know if I've seen that. The latest Batman. Okay, and then my very last question is, what is your favorite terpene or pair of terpenes and why?
My favorite terpene number one is just myrcene. I like the pain relief that I get from high myrcene strains and the calming relief that I get from high myrcene strains. So
myrcene. Okay, yeah, that myrcene, man. That's that nighttime, sometimes. Like especially you get that 4% myrcene, sheesh.
Yeah.
And myrcene, if I'm correct, is the most like commonly found terpene, right? Like so.
Yes.
Yeah. But no, I mean, I appreciate you. The last thing, people, they're gonna want to connect with you. How can they connect with you? How can they stay connected?
So on Instagram, you can follow me at Queen of Green DC. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, as far as the Psychedelics Guild. We're at the Psychedelics Guild. And we have a website too, www.thepsychedelicsguild.org. So yeah.
Yes. And do you guys have a meeting coming up? How often are you meeting?
So we are working on having a monthly virtual meeting. And what we're also hoping to have, if we can just find a space, is a culture share. So where we share plants, where we share mushroom cultures, things like that.
Wow. That's actually pretty fun. I was thinking of a plant swap, so similar to like a plant swap, right? Like so.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yes, I got you. I like the vibes. Well, I will definitely connect with you. And as I said, I appreciate you. I hope to come back to Holistics sometime soon. I just went to District Cannabis, and I'm going to Evermore soon. But
Okay.
Holistics still remains, as I said, one of my faves.
Awesome.
So looking forward to coming back up there, and I'm sure I'll see you at an event in the community somewhere before 420.
Absolutely.
Yes. Well, you have a good rest of your day, and tell all the people at Holistics I said hello.
I will do that. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Take care.
Later. That was this episode. Of course, we had very special guest. Guys, the message: learn how to grow. Learn how to grow something, right? Like pick up that green thumb. And as I said in the new year, drink water and mind your business. See you next time.